With chapter 980 of One Piece, our boy Eustass Kid finally got a taste of some sweet, sweet poetic justice. And we all know how great poetic justice is in One Piece. Luffy punching the crap out of the Celestial Dragon, Robin slapping the snot out of Spandam, and my personal favorite, Katakuri putting Flampe in her place after she almost ruined one of the story's best fights. But what makes these moments so great is watching that person get absolutely destroyed for everything they've done. And Apoo is no exception, as he is one of the biggest rats in One Piece. This is why I really don't think his fight with Kid is even close to over. For everything he did to Kid and Hawkins, there's no way Kid will let him off without an epic beatdown. But seeing as Apoo managed to bitch slap Luffy and Zoro, one can only wonder exactly how he'll do it. Before I get started, make sure to comment below with your thoughts on this fight between Kid and Apoo. I'll be doing more discussions like this every week, so make sure to comment so I can talk with you beyond the four corners of the video. Now let's start by just quickly going over everything Apoo has done to deserve this beatdown from Kid. First of all, he's just ugly. I mean, look at him. Ugh. That's a face even his mom would want to deck in the schnoz. Then there's the fact that he ratted out Kid and Hawkins to Kaido. Right off the bat, I lost any respect for Apoo. All of the other members of the worst generation have followed their own journeys and stuck to their guns. Beji joined Big Mom, but only so he could take down one of the Yonko. Apoo, meanwhile, decided to be a gigantic wuss and work for Kaido rather than stand up for himself like Kid and Luffy. And because he's a giant wuss, Apoo ruined Kid's alliance. Kid was all set to set up a nice alliance and take down Shanks. Not that he was gonna, I mean, come on, let's be honest. The only one strong enough to land a hit on our boy Shanks was that Yonko level sea monster from Luffy's village. But just think that if everything had gone according to plan, Kid could have been the next emperor, like Luffy. But nope, Apoo had to go and screw him over. Plus, he messed with pizza time. Let's be serious for a second. You do not, under any circumstances, mess with pizza time. It's just uncalled for. Aside from ruining the alliance, Apoo ultimately got Kid sent to Udon prison. He was separated from his crew and forced to work in the mines while they had to work for Orochi. But worst of all, because of what Apoo did, Killer was forced to eat a smile fruit and was twisted into the very same tragic form we know from Abisu Town. This was without a doubt the worst outcome when you consider how much Killer means to Kid. Killer is Kid's right-hand man, his first mate. Killer, like most first mates, is Kid's close friend and trusted advisor. Imagine if Luffy lost Zoro, the first member he met and the one he has known the longest. Kid relies on Killer for help and trusts him, and we see how much Kid cares for Killer when he escapes Udon and immediately goes looking for him. Kid even tells us all this stuff about how Killer hates his laugh, beats anyone who makes fun of his laugh, covers his face to hide his laugh. So why is he laughing now? Who made him laugh like this? This is the tragic outcome of Apoo's betrayal. Killer, the person Kid respects so much, reduced to a literal laughingstock. And that's why Kid will never let Apoo get away with what he did. Not just for himself, but for how much he hurt his first mate. So now that we know why Kid is determined to beat Apoo, the next question becomes how he'll do it. Now let me just start off by saying that I think a lot of people give too much to power scaling in One Piece. Is there power scaling in One Piece? Absolutely. Is it the driving factor behind a fight? No, this is not Dragon Ball. Characters obviously have very different power levels, but fights in One Piece are always influenced by instinct, willpower, and strategy. So when we see Apoo get the advantage over Luffy and Zoro, it's not because Apoo is necessarily stronger than them, but because Luffy and Zoro have no idea how his powers work. Now, having said that, just because Apoo isn't necessarily stronger than these two doesn't mean his power is something to be taken lightly. Remember, Apoo is a member of the worst generation who just gave Luffy and Zoro a run for their money, so this means that Apoo shouldn't be underestimated, and anyone who fights him should know how to deal with his abilities. I guess maybe unless you're Kid and you decide to bury him 6 feet in the ground with one hit. Guys, look, that doesn't matter. Just trust me on this. The next question is, how do Apoo's abilities work? Well, unfortunately, we don't quite know the answer yet. Essentially, Apoo can turn his body into various instruments and use these instruments to attack his opponent. Now, it's important to point out that these instruments don't always act as attacks. They can be played to make music, or they can be used to make attacks. In the fight against Kizaru, Apoo starts by just playing music with his instruments, but then attacks Kizaru with those same instruments. The only notable difference is when Apoo actually attacks, he shouts a command that corresponds to that particular attack. Kinda like, what the hell is the name of that stupid toy? You know, Bop It, that's it, Bop It. You know, beat it, bop it, good times. Well, like our friend the Bop It, when Apoo plays the cymbal, he shouts slash before his target is dealt a slash attack. When he bangs his chest like a drum, he shouts boom before his target is dealt an explosion attack. So what we can deduce is that Apoo's attacks are only produced when he wills it. Whether or not he actually has to shout the command is unclear, since it's possible he just happens to shout the attacks, like how Luffy shouts his attacks when he fights. But what's most important to note is that particular attacks seem to correspond with particular instruments. When Apoo fights Luffy and Zoro, he demonstrates almost the same fighting pattern. His cymbal produces a slash attack, and his drum produces an explosion attack. So it seems that Apoo plays certain instruments in order to produce specific corresponding attacks. But what does this tell us about fighting against Apoo? Well, if you're a Demon Slayer fan, this should sound very familiar. In the fight against Kyugai, Tanjiro realizes that Kyugai's attacks correspond to certain ways he plays his drums. The shoulders and legs flip the room right or left, and the belly drum launches a slash attack. Once he realized this, Tanjiro was able to predict Kyugai's moves by reading the drums and how he played them. So if Apoo's attacks really do correspond to certain instruments, then, like with Kyugai, it's possible to predict the attacks by observing which instrument he plays, but there's still one important difference. When Kyugai played his belly drum, Tanjiro could actually see the slash launch towards him and could dodge it. So far, when Apoo has attacked, the enemy could never see the attack even though they were looking right at Apoo. Kizaru was looking right at him, but the slash and explosion attacks suddenly hit him as soon as Apoo made his command. Similarly, Luffy and Zoro were looking right at Apoo, but couldn't see the attacks. The attacks landed immediately after Apoo made his command. So while Apoo's attacks can be similarly predicted, they are different from Kyugai's in that they don't seem to be visible until they land. Now, this can mean two things. It could mean that they're just like Kyugai's attacks, but aren't visible until they actually land. But seeing as Apoo's attacks always land in the panel right after he shouts, it seems like the attack doesn't really travel, but actually just lands on the opponent right after the command. In other words, Apoo makes his command, and then the corresponding attack instantly lands on his opponent without having to cross the distance between the two. Either way, we know that these attacks can at least be predicted based on the instrument, but knowing how to read Apoo's attacks isn't enough. You still need to know how to actually attack Apoo. So how has this been done? Kizaru damaged Apoo by closing the distance between the two, flanking him, and landing a hit he wasn't expecting. Similarly, Kid damages Apoo when he flanks him and lands an attack that he's not expecting. So in both cases, the key to damaging Apoo was to close the distance and use an attack that he doesn't have time to respond to. This distance factor is supported by the fact that Apoo actually mentions that Luffy and Zoro are still in his firing range. The way he puts it as a firing range suggests that Apoo fights based on a certain distance. We also know that he damages enemies when they are some distance away, but he seems to be vulnerable once that enemy closes the distance. So that means this: Kid can predict Apoo's attacks by observing which instruments he plays. While it seems like these attacks land instantly, it's still possible for Kid to predict and at least respond to the corresponding attacks. Kid can also damage Apoo by staying in close quarters with him so that Kid can land blows before Apoo has time to make his commands. Now, we don't know much about Kid's abilities, but it seems like he is the perfect fit against Apoo. While Apoo seems to have the advantage in distance fights, Kid can use his repel attack to launch objects at Apoo in a long or mid-range fight. Kid can also use his Devil Fruit to form his fist attacks, like the Punk Gibson, to attack Apoo from close to mid-range. So basically, Kid's Devil Fruit allows him to fight perfectly well against Apoo no matter the distance. And the best part is that, as I'm sure you're aware, this is only the tip of the iceberg in terms of Kid's abilities, meaning he probably has even more ways to deal with Apoo. In other words, it seems like Kid is all set to finally get that poetic justice we've been waiting so long for, and finally put Apoo in his place like the rat he is. Anyway, that's it for this discussion. Hopefully I'm right and we see Kid beat Apoo even more. If you enjoyed this discussion, then make sure to like this video and support the channel. If you'd like more One Piece discussions like this one, then subscribe to the channel so you can follow along with weekly videos. Thank you for watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.